Welcome to the April regular session of the Opelika Planning Commission. On the agenda today, some of the items call for a public hearing. If you want to speak or have something you're concerned about, come to the podium to your right, and you'll be limited to 5 minutes per item of the agenda. So if you'll keep that in mind, we certainly would appreciate it. Matt, do we have anything that you, about previous?
No, sir. I believe we're up to date on all the previous items.
Okay. Commissioners, we need a motion for approval of last month's meeting. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Matt, let's go ahead and get started with item 1.
Yes, sir. Item 1 is a request for preliminary plat approval. This is the Anderson Lakes subdivision. The property is, of course, located on Anderson Road, and I believe that's Anderson Lakes circle that it comes off of. The applicant's requesting a 24-lot subdivision. All the lots would be accessed from Anderson Lakes Circle. And you see it here, it's zoned R3 between Anderson Lakes and North Town. This is a plat showing the kind of general layout, and again, just a slight revision based on some of our requirements. All of the lots exceed the minimum 70-foot lot wide width and the 10,000 square foot lot minimum requirement. And so you'll see all the lots here are off this additional street. There is a lot that has a small kind of flag stem going to Anderson Road, but it would not be used for access. We are recommending preliminary plat approval subject to the following: that they add the property owner information, add a utility easement statement, install underground utilities, install sidewalks on at least one side of the street, and on the final plat include Street A as a name for Street A as approved by the city engineer. Now I will say that Mr. Kenneth White is here representing the plat. Oh, you don't have to go.
Engineering.
The developer will be required to submit an infrastructure construction grading plan for the drainage, utility, post-construction detention, and roadway installation to the Engineering and Public Works Department for approval. Once this approval and all other utilities are approved, the land disturbance permit will be issued with the applicable state and federal permits. Under the monitoring of the Engineering Department and other utilities, roadway infrastructure will be completed and tested. Once the construction is complete, the bonds are provided for the maintenance and any unconstructed public infrastructure according to the subdivision regulations. A final plat will then be submitted to the Planning Commission for consideration. The Engineering Department review comments have been addressed, and the department recommends preliminary plat approval for this application. The water service will be accessed from a water main on Anderson Lake Circle, and this subdivision is outside of Opelika Power Services territory.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak?
Sir.
Come to the podium over here.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
No, right over here, and speak into the microphone.
All right. Thank you for your time. I think.
Sir, I'm sorry, I failed to mention, state your name and address.
Okay, Jackie Hall, 2309 Anderson Lakes Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
I think my concern, and a number of the people in our community concern, is how much traffic is going to be fed into our existing neighborhood. Now, I just heard, if I heard correctly, I did turn my hearing aids up, but if I heard it correctly, there is access to Anderson Road. And so I guess my question, first of all, is why isn't that neighborhood being fed out into Anderson Road rather than coming through our neighborhood? Because that has potential for creating the traffic, an increase in traffic quite a bit. And I like to say that at the end of our street, there is land that is being developed now. I don't know when they build or if they're going to build, but they've done a lot of dirt work there. And that has the potential for coming out in our neighborhood also. So if you take 24 lots, and let's say in most of those homes will probably have 2 cars, some may have teenagers, making it maybe 3 cars, it's going to increase our traffic in our neighborhood considerably. And it's, you know, it's just something that's not desirable for our neighborhood. So my question is, could it possibly be, could the traffic be fed to Anderson Road rather than coming through our neighborhood?
Matt, you want to address that?
You want me to address it? The property that is shown there that has that piece of flag, we call it a flag to Anderson Road, that's the existing property boundaries of this property, and they do not own any other side of that, and is only 30-foot wide. Our minimum roadway width is 50, so it does not meet the standards for a roadway to come out onto Anderson Road. It has to be at least 50 to 60-foot wide for a roadway to come out.
Okay, well, I know there's some lands that is for sale. I think it's like 6 acres in the area. I don't know if it's.
That's just not in the application. I'm not aware of any of that other property that's for sale. It's just what's been applied for.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that adjoins that or not, but there is 6 acres for sale right there. And so what about taking that traffic out on, what's that street called there, Westgate?
That's Anderson Road.
No, I'm talking about the other road, the Opelika Auburn Highway, I always called it. I think it's.
Oh, that's North Park Drive.
North Park, thank you.
There's no roadway access to North Park Drive from this property either.
An opening right here, but there's not enough space.
Well, if it's a possibility additional land could be purchased to feed that traffic out on Anderson Lake, it would be greatly appreciated by the residents of Anderson Lakes, I can assure you, because a number of us are concerned. Right? Any questions for me? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, need a motion. Any discussion?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 2.
Item 2 is request for preliminary final plat approval. This property has been before you before for preliminary plat approval. It's on McDonald Drive at the kind of the current terminus here. It's zoned R3, and you'll see it's part of a larger piece of property. It also adjoins White Road, and that's why it's coming back to you for preliminary and final plat approval. So during our previous discussions, there was a recommendation that this subdivision either needed to have a extension to the remainder property here, or that it would need to have an access through the remainder property to White Road. And so what you'll see is the applicant is requesting approval for a 19-lot subdivision, with the 20th lot being the remainder. It's 42 acres, although the development area really is much smaller because, again, you can see here about 36 of that is in this parcel A here. And so between the preliminary construction and this time, parcel A was the applicant was able to purchase a piece from one of the adjoining property owners of 50 feet wide that would carry it all the way to White Road. Now, that doesn't mean that this will connect to White Road. It's this parcel, remainder A parcel, will connect to White Road. And that would be any future development on this parcel would likely have to go through that White Road section and then would also require substantial upgrades to White Road itself because it's currently an unpaved road. As far as this development goes, though, the current property, again, is zoned R3. The 19 lots all meet the minimum 10,000 square foot lot area and the density and minimum width. The staff is recommending preliminary and final plat approval subject to the following: that they install underground utilities and sidewalks on at least one side of the street, and that they show the name of the adjoining existing subdivisions. And I believe Mr. Nettles is here representing the application today.
Engineering?
All the comments have been addressed on the final plat that was submitted to the department. Certification of completion will be completed and signed by the engineer and public works directors as soon as all the items have been checked off. The roadway, drainage, infrastructure, and utilities have been majoritarily installed and tested. There are a few outstanding items that, but because the roadway has been completed, we're gonna recommend this approved tonight. And then the smaller items will be we'll hold signatures until the lesser items come through. Those items are to have a stop sign and roadway signs installed, the performance bond and maintenance bond submitted, and as-built documents submitted. Everything on your end?
No.
Or they still need some?
We're still pulling vacuums on manhole.
Okay.
We've not received the sewer video. We've not received any as-bills, and there's no street sign.
So those are the items that are remaining, but because everything is installed, we are gonna recommend that this be approved at this time. Water Board also reports that their final inspection still remains to be accomplished before they will approve and sign the plat as well. So signatures will be held until all these items are completed submitted to the engineering, public works, and water departments. And Opelika Power will serve the subdivision.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, need a motion.
Motion for preliminary and final plat approval, staff recommendations.
Need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 3.
Item 3 begins the final plat portion of our agenda. So the next 3 are all final plat requests. The first is Global Impact Subdivision. This is 1203 Crawford Road. The subject property you see here is zoned R1. The applicant is Mike Marr with Precision Surveying, representing Global Impact Church, Pastor Derek Thomas. Currently, this is largely undeveloped, although this does contain I believe what's referred to as OR property. The applicant came before us previously for a 9-lot subdivision, and it still is a 9-lot subdivision, although it's slightly changed. So there's one less development lot here coming off of the street called here Dominion Way. What they've done is they've had to, based on some comments from ALDOT, I believe, incorporate slightly the property that the adjoining church is on to improve the access there. And then you still have the older homestead on its own separate property. All of the lots meet the minimum lot size of 1 acre for the R1 zone. All lots will take access off of Dominion Way, except for the existing Lot 8 and then Lot 9 will both have access off Crawford Road. Staff recommends final plat approval subject to the following: that the name and address of the owner and developer be shown, the Opelika Power communications easement be noted on the final plat, and add a note that Lot 7 will not take access from Crawford Road.
Engineering?
All the Opelika surveyor comments regarding this plat have been addressed. The engineering department has been inspecting the construction and the testing of the infrastructure of the subdivision. and a certification of completion will be completed and signed by the engineer and public works directors. As soon as all the items have been met, all the drainage and roadway is installed according to plan. I'll need to check on the signs, but make sure they are up before the certification of completion is submitted. The bonds have been submitted, the as-bills have been submitted, and the roadways and lots have been graded. So therefore, all the requirements are met. The engineering department recommends final plat approval. Opelika Utilities Board also recommends final plat because their water line meets their standards. This subdivision is all on septic tanks, so no sewer requirements are there, and Opelika Power will service this subdivision.
Now, no, Mr. Marr is here representing this application.
Okay, thank you. There's no public hearing on this item. Commissioners, I need a motion.
Make a motion for final plat approval with staff recommendations.
Any discussion?
Yes, is there any type of buffer between the church and lot one that keeps cars from riding across?
No, ma'am, there is not that I'm aware of.
It's kind of a shared driveway.
Yes, ma'am.
The church will use that road and turn off to go to their parking lot.
It's my understanding that most of the owners of the development are also members of the church there as well.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Scott, on the engineering report, item 3 says maintenance bond of 25%. Is that a typo?
No, the maintenance bonds are 25. Performance bonds are 125%.
Okay.
Maintenance bonds are 25. They don't have any performance requirements remaining. So that's the only bond that they have, and they have already submitted that one.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Item 4 is Legacy Village Townhome Phase 2 subdivision. This is on Century Boulevard. The applicant is Brett Basquin with Foresight Group, representing Clayton Properties Group, Brooks Harris. The subject property is in the C2 zone with the Gateway Corridor primary overlay running across it. The applicant is requesting final plat approval for the remaining 27 lots of a 53-lot townhome subdivision. So you see here, the property is kind of located right here where Gateway, Thomason, and Century kind of all come together. Most of the development will come on the Century side because of some floodplain issues. And then you have the access coming directly off Century Boulevard. So here you see a copy of the plat. The lots that are being platted are those shown kind of on the far eastern entrance here. And so you see 5 buildings, I believe, through there. The townhomes are fee simple. They'll include front and rear yards. They meet the minimum lot size of 1,800 square feet, minimum lot width. And they are generally quite a bit larger than our minimums are there. They are required to have underground utilities and sidewalks installed, and then they do show the required access easement along the rear. We've noted through this that a landscape buffer is required along Century, and I believe they've planted at least that partially. I'm not sure that'll be all, that has all been planted, but we will require that before any COs are issued on the buildings adjacent to the road there. Staff is recommending final approval of this subject to the following, that sidewalks be installed on at least one side of the street, install the landscaping, grass, and ground cover for all yard areas. All utilities should be underground. Any fencing by the developer property owner should be consistent across all lots, and then change the name of the street, the east side of Legacy Circle to Time Court. And Mr. Basquin is here representing the application.
Commissioners, I need a motion.
Did you need the engineering report?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't have a report. No, I'm just kidding. All these, this subdivision has been before you in a previous phase, so all the infrastructure and utilities have been reviewed, all the bonds have been submitted. So all the requirements that we hold have already been completed on another phase of this plat. So therefore, we recommend this plat for approval. Opelika Utilities also recommends this plat for approval, and Opelika Power will service this subdivision.
Now, commissioners, I need a motion. There's no public hearing.
Make a motion, final plat approval, staff recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Item 5 is Windsor Village Phase 2. This is a re-subdivision of Lot 14 and Lot 15. This is located on the corner of Waverly Parkway and Veterans Parkway. The subject property has been before you for the first phase. This is, of course, Phase 2, and it's part of a master plan community and a planned unit development. The applicant here is the PLS group representing TD Development Llc. So you see, this is the section that they are proposing to get final plat on. This is the northeast corner of the property right here, and so you're working with kind of the northern boundary of this property. And so what you'll see is it's about 15 acres with 41 lots. The plat consists of 10 single-family lots, kind of around the cul-de-sac here to the northeast. And then you have a section of 30 townhome lots coming off this side cul-de-sac. This cul-de-sac does, or these areas were previously shown for these different uses. Now, I will say, I believe they've reduced the number of townhome lots shown in this top portion because of some of the topography issues they've had, but all the lots do meet the minimum standards for the planned unit development. We did note, and through the planned unit development, there were some required landscaping buffers that were around the perimeter of the property, especially to this north where to join single-family development. Those buffers are shown and will have to be installed if they're not currently up to standard. We do recommend final plat approval of this, subject to the following: that the underground utilities shall be required, sidewalks shall be required on one side of the street. Note the use, ownership, and maintenance of common areas. Add the access easement for the park area and walking path trail network. Build the trail network and park area in the common described in the PUD master plan. And then change note 1 that states property is in the city of Auburn. Add a 10-foot landscape buffer between lot 77, which is over here, in the single-family zones. And so just to point out, the park that was shown is this area kind of between the townhouses and the single-family. During the master development plan, there was a network of trails that would go through these areas so that people could have the ability to walk through kind of some of the terrain and down towards some of the lakes, and so that's what we're referencing with the notes about the walking trail. But I believe they are represented here today. I believe someone from PLS is here representing the plat today.
Engineering.
All the surveyor's comments have been addressed for this plat. This road has also been previously approved in the previous phase of the subdivision. They built them all at the same time, and we tested them and bonded them all at the same time. So everything's been completed as far as infrastructure on this subdivision. So therefore, the engineering department recommends final plat approval. Opelika Utilities Board has no comments, and Opelika Power and Alabama Power will service the subdivision.
Commissioners, I need a motion.
Motion for final plat approval with staff recommendations.
Any discussion?
Yes. These lot numbers, can they be a little bit, are they numbered? They look so small.
They are numbered. It's hard to see it on this drawing, but yes, ma'am. There are lot numbers that are, I believe, consistent with what they've shown in previous phases, so they pick up where the last phases came off.
Yeah, maybe if they didn't have a circle around them, that would be better. And you said that they are changing the number of townhouses?
Yes, ma'am. I believe there were more townhouses originally proposed along this Crestmont Court here, which is this section through here. I don't have the exact number, but some of these buildings have dropped down to 2-unit buildings instead of being 3s and 4s. So I believe that the overall number through here has been reduced.
So is it 30? I mean, what are we approving?
You're approving 30. What I'm saying is the planned unit development, the original master plan showed more in this area. But you are approving the 30 that they have shown here, if you approve it.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I abstain. Motion carries. Item 5.
6.
Yes, sir. Item number 6 is the start of the conditional uses. And so the first item before you today is a request for a conditional use for a climate control self-storage facility. The applicant is Blake Rice with Barrett Simpson, representing John Anglin and Terry Johnson. This is located at 3000 Old Opelika Road, which is kind of right on the corner of Old Opelika Road and Frederick Road. Subject property was previously before you, I believe last month, for a rezoning request from R4 to C2, the Gateway Corridor Primary. That is still going through the process to City Council, but the applicant is coming in with a conditional use request for a 2-story climate control facility on this almost 5.96 acre piece of property here. The site, this is a kind of an elevation of what the building looks like from the same applicant in other locations. They're proposing this building would be 2 stories instead of 3 stories, which I think is definitely positive. And then you have a layout here, so you have Frederick Road and then Old Opelika Road, and so what you'll notice is there's no direct access off Frederick Road. You come in off of Old Opelika Road, and then you would take a right here. The building would be approximately 100,000 square foot footprint, so the total building would be approximately 200,000 square feet, so it's a rather large building here with kind of heavy landscaping on the sides that abut the residential areas and then along the street frontage. The site does meet the minimum parking requirements. Generally, our parking is based off the number of storage units, and so they have 100 parking spaces. That means they would be allowed up to 1,000 storage units, which is probably more than they will have based on the size of this facility. And then they do show the overall landscape points being met. However, they do need to adjust some of the minor notational information related to landscaping, just because they're slightly off there. We did recommend with this, because it does but single family, and when we thought it was originally potentially going to be 3-story, that they either come in with a larger tree material, or they come in with something that would be faster growing. I think that's still important. However, I think it's less of an issue with it being 2-story versus 3-story. You're not worried about these kind of towering over a single-family home at that height. The elevations have been, as we say, have been proposed. And I apologize. There we go. So again, they do show an elevation that includes simulated stone, stucco, ephes with some small accents of architectural metal. One thing that we did note as well is that because this is in a transition zone from commercial to residential, we thought that it'd be important that colors be somewhat muted in nature, and generally, I think these colors for the most part are, although we did recommend that if the doors are visible, that they be not such a bright yellow or not such a kind of vivid yellow or vivid color. And then we also recommended that any sort of motion sensor lighting that could be here be directed so that it's not directly facing single-family residential, so that people don't have kind of flashing lights flashing at nighttime. One last thing is this is in the airport potential obstruction runway zone because of its proximity to Auburn University Airport. So the applicant is going to have to submit a review through the FAA, which means that they will look and make sure that the proposed height and location isn't within a flight corridor and be a potential obstruction to the airport. And so that process typically takes a little bit of time, but it's something where if you grant approval on this, we would make sure that no building permits are issued until that clearance has been granted. Overall, though, we do recommend approval of this, subject to the following: that any approval be subject to the rezoning by the Opelika City Council. Site should meet all gateway corridor cladding requirements on all 4 sides. Landscape plan should be updated to correctly show the development area. Residential planting shall be evergreen or a mixture of evergreen and deciduous trees, and either more mature or larger species shall be selected that grows quickly. Site shall meet the zoning ordinance lighting requirements, and any internal motion detection lights shall be shielded from residential properties. The colors of the building should be similar to the proposed elevation, with the exception of the interior doors, which should be dulled or more muted color. And no building permits shall be issued until the project has received approval from the Federal Aviation Administration, or that no potential airport obstruction is present.
Engineering.
The applicant be required to submit a site construction grading plan for the drainage utility and post-construction detention to the engineering and public works departments for review and approval. Once this approval and all other utility approvals have been met, a land disturbance will be issued in concurrence with any other applicable state and federal permits. Engineering department has no other comments concerned with this proposed conditional use application. Opelika Utilities do not submit a report, and Opelika Power and Alabama Power will either service this property.
Commissioners, go ahead and need a motion.
Excuse me, there is a public hearing required for this.
There is?
Yes, sir, it's conditional use.
Thought it was final.
No, this-
Public hearing is now open on this item.
And Mr. Rice is here representing the application.
Okay, thanks. Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners.
Question, Matt, public notice would have gone out. Is there adjoining property?
For conditional uses, we don't send out letters, adjacent property letters.
Did not?
We do not.
Motion to approve conditional use for staff recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to ask a question. What, in reference to this picture we got, Matt,
Yes, sir?
what side are we looking at? Are all 4 sides gonna look like this? Because the building's gonna be approximately 40 foot tall.
Well, and in this case, I believe the building would be 28 feet tall is what we've been told by the applicant. So it won't be, again, they've shown us a 3-story building. This will not be a 3-story building.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the picture.
Yes, sir. So it's going to be a 2-story building, but I would defer to the applicant to know, see if they know.
It would be. See, I'm sorry, Matt.
No, you're quite all right.
Mike, that is actually both frontage roadsides at least.
Can't hear you.
That, the elevation you're seeing is at least both Frederick Road and the old Opelika Road sides.
Okay.
Don't have elevations
they'll
on the
look like
2
this.
rear,
Pretty much
Yeah.
like this?
Mhm.
Okay.
just short.
So the side that faces residential will not be as open
No, ma'am.
to like,
We have recommended the condition that it have corridor approved materials on all 4 sides, but
But it would not be the open glass type.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 7.
Yes, sir. Item 7 is also a request for self-storage. This is a request by Steve Benson at 1704 Frederick Road. The applicant is proposing to add a small building of self-storage in their existing climate control facility on 1700 Frederick Road in the C2 zone. Now, the front part is in the Gateway Corridor. However, somewhere along the way, this back part got split into two separate pieces. So this rear part is not technically in the gateway itself. The applicant has a current fairly large storage facility there. You'll see the buildings here along Frederick Road. Coming back, the property adjacent to it here is the Botanic Development with the large ponds, and then you have a residential property further back. But what you'll notice is there is a small building that's located here along the edge. This building would be a 20-unit addition that is not climate controlled with exterior doors facing interior to the development. The units would be about 800 feet from Frederick Road and not visible. The applicant would have some 10 by 20s, 10 by 15s, and 10 by 10s. So for the most part, larger storage units. And they would be accessed off an existing asphalt drive with a 10-foot wooded undisturbed buffer on the site plan adjacent to the adjacent property. Because of where it's located and how it's screened, we are recommending approval of this as submitted. And I don't know if Mr. Benson is here today.
Engineering.
Because of the limited site of the size of this disturbance site, and there's no utilities involved in these buildings, no site plan be required to be submitted for this application. All permits and approvals will be coming from the Building Inspections Department and other relevant utilities. The Engineering Department has no other comments or concerns with this conditional use application. Opelika Utilities does not have a comment, and Opelika Power will service the site.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, I need a motion.
Make a motion, conditional use, staff recommendation.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 8.
Sir, item 8 is a request for a conditional use approval for a church. The request is located at the end of Yarborough Drive. The applicant is David Slocum with Pinnacle, representing, I guess it's Grace Heritage Church. Subject property is currently vacant in Zone C3. You see it located here. The applicant is requesting conditional use approval to construct a one-story church and fellowship hall building located at the end of the property. The total lot is 17.8 acres. I believe it was originally noted the applicant the church was purchasing 3.6 acres. I believe they have discussed purchasing more of the property. However, at this time, the development plan, I believe, will say the same as what you permitted, or what you viewed. And so you'll see here, coming off a newly constructed cul-de-sac, a drive that'll come in with the church facing the cul-de-sac, and then a fellowship or community hall located behind it, with parking located both in front and behind the main building. Now here you see a landscape plan showing all the plantings that they're proposing. Just kind of zoom in a little bit. And then they've provided a floor plan of both buildings and then elevations. And here, the elevations, you'll notice, have a, I believe it's a brick base with metal siding on all four sides, and I would note that this is outside of the gateway corridor. The church meets all the requirements for the parking requirements based on occupancy. The site is in, again, the airport overlay zone, and they'll have to review the FAA requirements here. I believe there have been some preliminary discussions on this, and there may be, this one is further away and may sit at a site that doesn't require approval, but that'll be something we confirm prior to any building permit issuing. Did want to note that with the landscape plan, there is a requirement for a residential buffer on the side here adjacent to some development kind of right in this northwest corner. And so that'll have to meet the residential buffer requirements of being either 20 feet undisturbed or a planted buffer or buffer with fence. Otherwise, the landscape plan exceeds the requirements. With that, we are recommending final plat, conditional use approval, subject to approval of the from the FAA or Auburn University Regional Airport concerning the height. Outside lighting must meet the requirements of the FAA or the city. Subdivision must be created to create the tract, and then if dumpsters are added, it will need to be reviewed and approved by the planning department for screening location, and then add the residential buffer to the landscape plan. And Mr. Slocum, I believe, is here.
Engineering.
The applicant will be required to submit a site construction grading plan for the drainage, utility, post-construction detention, and roadway installation to the Engineering and Public Works Departments for review and approval. Once this approval and all of the utilities approvals have been met, the land disturbance permit will be issued in concurrence with any applicable state and federal permits. Engineering Department has no other comments or concerns with this proposed conditional use application. Opelika Utilities will have water service available from Yarborough Drive, and this is outside of Opelika Power Services territory.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, I need a motion.
I move for conditional use with staff recommendations.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 9.
Number 9 is also a conditional use for a church. This is located at 3 Oak Court. The applicant is Carmela Pearson, representing Alyssa Caldwell. The subject property currently has a vacant building that I believe may have been a church previously, and is in the R4 zone. It's located here on the corner of Oak and Darden. So what the applicant has in the process, I believe, of purchasing this. Again, this was previously the Tabernacle Church of God, but has been vacant for about 15 years. A new church, small church, would like to come in and grow in this location, and so they plan on meeting 3 days a week. Currently has 6 meetings, or 6 members. They've submitted a site plan for the property. The building is about 1,900 square feet on 11,000 square foot lot, kind of triangular, and so what they've done is they've originally showed us parking based on the maximum occupancy that could be required or could be allowed inside the building. After looking at that, we didn't feel like this was the best situation for this because of the number of parking spaces it would be pulling directly backing into traffic. And so what we've done is recommended that if this is approved, that it be done so that the parking be placed on Oak Street, because Darden Street has a bit more activity in and out. And so we're recommending with that the occupancy be limited to meet the parking, which I believe drops it down to about 60 persons instead of 100. Also recommended some additional landscaping. However, that's somewhat limited based on the site itself. And so with that, we are recommending conditional use approval. The applicant has requested the ability to postpone their asphalt or concrete for the parking spaces and be allowed to use parking blocks until the church grows a bit. And then based on this, we're recommending that the 15 spaces be installed no later than April 26th of 2024, which would be 2 years. Churches are one where it is somewhat common to have more natural parking just because of the limited use they do get, and so we felt that was reasonable, provided the Planning Commission felt that was acceptable.
Engineering.
Because of the limited size of the site disturbance, no site plan will be required to be submitted. All permits and approval will come from the Building Inspections Department and relevant utilities. Engineering Department has no other comments or concerns with this conditional use application. Opelika Water has no comments, and Opelika Power will service this site.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, I need a motion.
Make a motion for conditional approval with staff recommendations.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 10.
Item 10 is a request for a Circle K gas station convenience store. This is located on Birmingham Highway at Shelton Mill Road. The applicant is John Cowden, representing WWS Properties LLC. Currently, the site is undeveloped. If you're familiar with this is Birmingham Highway 280 and Shelton Mill Road, Grand National Parkway on the other side. And so we have the current fueling station here on the other corner. The property here is located in the C2 Gateway Corridor Primary, which is conditional use for fueling stations. Perhaps the most interesting piece of this property is, as you'll see, is the development is both in the city of Opelika and in the city of Auburn. And so the triangular portion here on the corner is in Opelika. Most of this building and all the passenger fuel pumps would be in Opelika. This one southwest corner and some of the truck fueling pumps would be located in the city of Auburn. So this will have to go through both, review by both cities. And so this is the first step in that process. You also notice through the fueling station there's a right-in, right-out off of Birmingham Highway here, further down to meet ODOT spacing requirements. And then the city of Opelika will maintain and approve the final location of the access point off of Shelton Mill Road, because they handle all the other access there.
City of Auburn.
City of Auburn, yeah. Sorry, City of Auburn will handle that. This is proposed to be a Circle K on approximately 4.4 acres. Again, a little bit closer blow up of the property here. And so you'll see canopy and pumps in the front with some larger pumps in the back for, I would assume, truck or diesel fueling. Then a fairly substantial landscaping plan, both against the residential in the rear and then along the frontage. And we've kind of shown a slight modification to that, but it's generally everything meets our requirements. They do show a dumpster screen with landscaping. And then they provide us with some elevations showing the sod and brick, and I believe ephes and lap panel. And then provided us some actual pictures from another site that they feel are fairly close to what would be constructed at this location. The site doesn't have any sort of drive-through. It's approximately 5,000 square feet building. Again, meets the landscape requirements, meets the gateway canopy requirements and parking requirements. We do recommend conditional use approval, subject to following, that they install no overnight parking signs on the property. And the company will enforce any violations of that. And that if necessary, canopy or pole lights should be shielded to prevent glare to motorists. Finally, install exterior materials on the canopy columns so that they meet the corridor requirements.
Engineering.
The applicant will be required to submit a site construction grading plan for drainage, utility, post-construction detention to the Engineering and Public Works Departments for review and approval. Once this approval and all other utilities have been met, a permit will be issued in concurrence with any state or federal permits. Engineering Department has no other comments or concerns with this proposed conditional use. This site is outside of Opelika Water and Opelika Power Services Districts.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak?
Let me say also on the utilities.
You did the utility.
No, he didn't do the
You
sewer.
didn't do utility?
I didn't do sewer, no, sir.
The sewer, is gonna have to be Auburn. We don't have
Auburn
sewer
Well,
on
I'm
that.
glad you said that.
And, so he put bathrooms on the Auburn side.
That's good.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Make a motion.
Have I made a motion?
We finna do it now?
I need a motion.
I don't believe there was one.
Motion for.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. How we gonna decide who gets the money?
I was gonna leave that up to Mr. Gunner. There are ways to do that, to work between cities to come up with agreements to determine how the funding will be, and there are a couple different methods that could be done to calculate out the division of taxes.
Most cities do it based on square footage in each city.
And
In this
you-
case, most Opelika would have more square footage than
Yeah.
Auburn.
Looks like just the bathroom's gonna be in
and
Auburn.
either
And then the
pumps or square footage.
pumps, if all the diesel in Auburn, all the gasoline in Opelika, you can just, Opelika collect for the
Sound like we work.
passenger cars, yeah, it can be worked out.
Question.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Schumer.
Go ahead.
If we move for approval, is there any reason we shouldn't amend that to pending Auburn's approving what
So-
we've approved?
You can, but it doesn't matter. We wouldn't allow it to go forward without some sort of,
And it wouldn't change our position?
no, sorry. It just the same way as if they were to approve it and we didn't, I don't think it could be constructed.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 11A.
Yes, sir. Item 11A is a text amendment, and this is, again, one we mentioned previously in the work session. This deals with downtown residential living and section 7.3A, which is the district regulations. So the first item you have on here would be a modification to the density dwelling units per acre in the C1 zone. Currently, that is shown as 16 units per acre. Originally, we'd proposed to move that up to 36 units per acre based on some review of some of the sites through downtown. We have since it went through city council, that was one of the items city council's asked us to re-examine, and so we've dropped that down from 36 down to 28 units per acre. In looking at other cities, we felt that was reasonable. In looking at our development downtown, we've kind of done some homework on what has been developed in the downtown area and their density. So you'll see these residential units that we have downtown. They're the ones in the color, and I apologize, there's an extra square there, but the green are those that would meet the current 16 units per acre. And so you see about 3 sites in our downtown that would meet our current density allowance. The yellow sites are those that would be allowed between 17 and 36 units per acre, which was the previous recommendation. Most of these, I think, would still meet the 28 units per acre. And then you have the red, and those are the ones that would be over 36 units per acre. And so those are ones that would exceed current density. Now, what happens in most times in downtown, and that's why dwelling units per acre are often higher in downtowns than there are other places, is because because you don't have things like necessarily parking or other things, you've got small building footprints. And so on a 2,000 square foot building, you're basically talking about 1/20th of a acre. And so if you put 2 units in there, you're talking about roughly 40 units per acre. And in some cases, we have 1,000 square foot buildings, which means that by the time that they're developed, I mean, they're basically at 1 unit could be a huge density, even though it may not seem like it. And so looking through this, we've gone through, we feel like 16 units, which is what's allowed in most other zones in the downtown, does not meet the density residential requirements for our downtown area. And so we're recommending this be moved up to 28 units per acre. The other thing that we've changed is we still have maintained the changes to the C1 regarding some of the design standards of where utilities, where parking, where mechanical units can all go, because we feel like the current regulations didn't protect us enough on those, although we do still have in most cases the historic design requirements that help us with that. The other big change though was to allow the allowance of buildings within the C1 zone and how they would utilize residential properties on the first floor. So currently in the C1 zone, it requires residential properties on the first floor. There are some minor exceptions to where that isn't really the case. Now, one is that if the downstairs is business owner occupied, so if I ran a bakery and wanted to live behind my business, I could use the back 60% of the first floor for my personal residence. To my knowledge, there was only one owner who lived above or near their business downtown, and they were on the second floor. And while we do want most of those downtown areas to have a non-residential first floor frontage, we felt like there needed to be some changes, because in many cases on our downtown, especially on the first floor, we have either alley access or we have corner access where it doesn't necessarily make sense to be so limiting on how those units are occupied on the first floor, provided that the frontage is still non-residential. The other thing is we looked at what uses were in the downtown and where there might be some uses that either aren't really the optimal uses in the downtown. And so what you'll see on this map here is everything that we went through and looked at as either vacant buildings, which is kind of this orangish red color, vacant property, which is more the purple color, and then corner parking or prime kind of street frontage parking that really would preferably be building, and then warehousing space. And so while Opelika has a history of warehousing in our downtown, we've kind of moved, I think, to the point where that is no longer kind of one of those optimal uses in the downtown. And so, again, we've looked as we continue to grow and expand downtown, we would prefer, from a city standpoint, to push our commercial spaces in the heart of downtown based on these recommendations. And so we still see that there's a fairly good bit of usable space in the current downtown that we feel should be prioritized for first floor commercial other than other spaces. And so we've continued the recommendation that outside of the kind of core downtown shown by this red block, that first floor commercial should be prioritized in this area, where now it's not to say that the planning commission cannot still require first floor commercial based on the conditional use aspect, because it is still a residential still is a conditional use in the downtown zone. So it's not to say that we won't, but it'll say that we're prioritizing these areas for first floor commercial and allowing instances of non-first floor commercial outside of these zones in the C1 zone. I know it's a lot. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I know this is all tied back to a development that y'all saw and granted conditional use approval on. I will say that we have had some further discussions with the developer there. They are continuing to look and review what they've submitted to y'all, and to see kind of how they can best work with the city to make changes based on feedback from the city council and citizens. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, now, we're gonna do A first.
Yes, sir. You'll do A first, and so this does require a public hearing, and then you'll make a recommendation, positive or negative recommendation, or you could take more time to study the issue.
Okay. Scott, you don't have any comments, do you?
No, sir, no reports from the technical side.
This item is open for a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
My name's Ashley Smith. I just had a couple questions about the amounts.
Name.
Ashley Smith. That's okay. Just a couple questions about the changing to units. It's currently at 16, but there's a percentage that you guys allow an additional amount of, so let it be 20. What Matt said, that's kind of the standard that y'all gone for downtown, or for residential. So I was just wondering what the condition percentage would be off this 28. Would that allow for another higher number of units? Or is that 28 the max that they can add? Also, adding residential on the first floor and eliminating the commercial already gives additional residential units. So I just think that's something we need to consider. You know, having commercial property is there for a reason. You know, there could be reasons why businesses haven't gone into the open locations that, you know, they may want this spot. So, just a couple questions and hoping for some clarification.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
My name is Joyce Newland, and I live on Oak Bowery Road. And I just want to start, first of all, I feel like I owe an apology, but don't know to whom I should apologize, and I guess it is to me, because I just remembered at the time that this is the fourth Tuesday, when I looked at the website, I found out it was difficult to maneuver, and then they still listed the meeting as on Fox Trail. So I wish y'all would kind of update some information. And Lucinda, they have you as being off of it, but you look like you're obviously on it. So, or Mrs. Cannon, I guess I should say in this meeting. So anyhow, so I would like for y'all to update some information. And secondly, is I do want to thank the members of the Planning Commission, because I realize as a citizen of Opelika for 48 years, I have depended upon the good graces of the Planning Commission to really do some good things for the city of Opelika. And I guess my apology is the fact that despite my involvement over several years of living in Opelika and liking this city so much, I have not kept up with all the meetings, and I have not mastered all the nuances of codes for C1, R2, D2, and the rest of the alphabet soup, nor do I know which townships or plot or states or district is meant in the reading of the legals. And so therefore, I would like to know how one can get a better understanding of what all of these mean. I know that you say that they are published, but I would like them published in a way so that more of us can understand what's going on. And secondly, I've been to several meetings in this new environment that we have here, and the acoustics either are not good, or my hearing is not good, or a combination of both, or the fact that you folks are so used to talking to each other that you're speaking in your own language, and so we do not know what's going on. So I would like a little bit of clarification when you're talking about something, maybe slowing down or giving us a little bit better understanding of what's going on, because, and a little bit more publication of what these meetings would be about. So that's what I'm talking about, because just knowing about it this afternoon at 1 o'clock did not give me a little bit of time to think about all the questions that I wanted. So I do thank you folks for being so diligent and helping, and that's what I wanted. One of the things, I had several other things, but I'm not going to take your time up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is Ian Stewart. I'm a resident of the South Side Historic District. And I just had one question, actually, in regard to this presentation, is the density. If that is passed by this panel, then will that then be applied to the rest of Opelika, and in particular, the development that I think we're all thinking about?
If it were to be approved by the city council, it would be applicable to any development in the C1 zone.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, I need a motion.
I make a positive recommendation for the motion to city council.
Need a second. Who seconded it? Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. We are approving going from 16 units to 28 units
Yes, ma'am.
for residential?
Yes, ma'am. Residential uses a density per acre. Commercial typically uses an intensity, which means how much impervious you can have on there, how much building square footage you can have on there. So the density is only applicable to residential development or mixed-use development.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 11B.
Let me ask, it carries to present it to the city council?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to confirm, we had 6 in favor and 2 opposed. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Who voted no?
Ms. Cannon and Ms. Watley. All right, thank you. The next item is also a text amendment, and this is a text amendment related, again, you previously saw this. This relates to section 7.3C, which is a permitted use table. This deals with the use duplex, mausoleum, columbarium, and crematorium. Again, what this would do is it would make a duplex conditional, go from allowed by right to conditional in the R4 and the R4M zone. And then it would allow the mausoleum, columbarium, and crematorium to be allowed conditionally in the Gateway Corridor primary, and for columbarium to be allowed conditionally in the Gateway Corridor secondary zones. And the reason why we did this is changing a change that the Planning Commission made about probably 20 years ago, where they made these not allowed in the Gateway Corridor zones, which makes sense because of what the uses are, and typically might not be a use you necessarily want to see on your corridors, but these uses themselves are almost always accessory uses to either churches, to funeral homes, or other types of establishments like that. And almost all of those uses are located on our gateway corridors. And so by restricting them as accessory uses, which is the way they're proposed in here, to the gateway corridors, we really almost restrict the use itself out of the city. And so what we're recommending is to allow these as conditional uses related to a primary use on the gateway corridors. Again, this was something that went before the Planning Commission, and then was part of the amendment that went through last time. But because the City Council kicked the entire text amendment back, we've decided to split them up and send them as separate amendments. And so we're asking for a positive recommendation to City Council, and again, this is a text amendment, so it will require a public hearing.
Engineer, you don't have any comments either, do you? This item is also open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, I need a motion.
Motion for a positive recommendation to City Council.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, question, just for my general question.
Turn on your microphone.
The columbariums and the mausoleums are strictly used for cemetery only, correct?
I believe we allow,
Only as an accessory use.
there
for
only is
cemetery.
accessory uses now. For a mausoleum, it would be accessory, you could have a mausoleum accessory to a cemetery. And then for a columbarium, it could be accessory to a cemetery or church, because some churches have small
Okay. but-
columbariums.
Yeah, all right.
And then the crematory would be only accessory to a funeral home.
Right, okay. That's all I got.
Is there any further discussion?
So none of them will stand alone.
That's correct. We're not in this now. It's potential that they could stand alone, although I think, especially for crematorium, there are state laws that require that it be part of a funeral home facility.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Go ahead.
Matt, if there was a negative vote by the planning commission or the city, would that limit or restrict any existing business to compete?
Sure. So, I mean, and that's largely one of the reasons why this came to us. So we have an existing funeral home that was interested in adding a crematorium, which is rapidly gaining traction as a popular end-of-life method. And so this would prevent an existing funeral home on the Gateway Corridor from having a crematorium if there were no change. Now, if it were modified, they would, any existing one that is on a Gateway Corridor where the zoning would allow it, would be allowed to come before the Planning Commission as a conditional use to seek that approval. It doesn't necessarily mean that it'd be granted, but again, it gives them the opportunity to come through a conditional use process as an accessory use, not as a primary use.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.
Item 12 is a piece of old business. It was on your agenda last month. This is Village of Waterford, Phase 4A. The applicant, Doug Ransom with DRB Group, is seeking final plat approval for 74 lots at the terminus of Lismore Drive. You'll see the subject property kind of highlighted here on the vicinity map. It's on Village of Waterford, which is part of a master plan community. Again, the applicant is proposing final plat approval for a phase that was given preliminary approval in December of 2020. The applicant is proposing 72 single-family home lots, one amenity lot and one stormwater lot. The lots are various sizes. Some of them are fairly smaller, between 36 and 40 feet, and the others are 50 to 55 feet. All the lots, as shown, I believe, meet the minimum lot size. We've provided some development details that were shown on the plan. We are recommending final plat approval subject to the comments on the list, which include add the developers and property owner information, show the existing corner markers, change the easement note to read as it's currently required, add the north arrows, the correct location, add the, or modify the name Arley Avenue, ensure that 239 has the minimum 50-foot frontage, install underground utilities, install sidewalks on one side of the street, add the note showing the setbacks, and provide the street trees as shown on the master plan, and add a note who's responsible to maintain the open space and amenity areas. I know they were finishing up their road today, and so I'll let Mr. Parker and Hillier give any update on that, and I believe Mr. Wagner is here representing the development if you have any questions of him.
Engineer, you don't have any comments?
I do, yes, sir. The engineering department's been inspecting construction and testing the infrastructure, and a certification of completion will be completed and signed by the engineer of public works once all the items listed have been completed. At this time, the roads, like Mr. Moses said, they've worked really hard to get the roads and infrastructure completed before today's deadline. But I think there are still some roadway signs, some testing need to be done, but the bonds have been submitted and the roads have been completed, so we recommend approval at this time. And again, as-built and testing, I'm sure sewer testing as well.
They've not even asked for inspections. We've done no inspections.
No inspections on the sewer?
No.
Okay. Hagan, you'll need to address that with the contractor before we complete this process, so. I'll leave that up to Mr. Hillier as far as approving at this stage, but all of our requirements have been met. And also, water has not been tested, and Opelika Power will serve this at some time.
This item does not require a public hearing. Commissioners, I need a motion for these changes.
Should it be tabled until then?
I don't,
Can it be tabled until?
You could ask it to be tabled. You can ask that the applicant give you an update on any of those items if you want to hear more about where they are, or you can recommend it to be
Hagan,
approved, and then.
do you have an update on sewer testing? I think that's one of the outstanding items that's holding the commission up right now. And inspection, I would say.
I'm Hagan Wagner. I know the contractor was out there today finishing tops and setting the tops because they were paving. I haven't talked to him about the inspections. I know he does have to do all the testing. As we
right,
talked
and
about
that takes a while on this many lots. On all the manholes, vacuum testing, quite a few things.
We tie into an existing, the most of it's the existing sewer line that was done several years ago. So it's just the stub roads that have the new sewer lines off of Stokes Road and was Arley Avenue.
I asked my inspector this morning for an update on these right before the meeting, and his remarks were the inspections have not even been requested, they hadn't begun. And that's where I'm at. And with that, the inspections, the videos,
Right.
All that of the sewer system, I just think with no inspections, it's a little quick. That's why I think Mr. Allen talked about the tabling possibility, but, what are your thoughts?
Well, I know, I can talk to the contractor, I know the water's been out there regularly checking that while it's been going on. And I thought the sewer had been in and out as well, checking on things. I know that it will get done, because I talked to him about it today.
Well, I understand, but we keep carrying these things out, then we have to keep up with them. That's up to the panel here.
The thing is if you deny it, it's gonna delay it even further.
I agree.
So you need to make your mind up whether you want it tabled, and then you can bring it back up next month. But if it's denied, you got a problem.
I know the signs are finished and it's been paved, and I guess the only thing is the.
I would
I
like,
make the motion, we table this
So
next month.
I would recommend you table it to May 24th, if that's what the commission would like to do, which will be the next meeting.
All right, second, who's seconding?
I second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the map that's up there, where is the entrance to Crawford Road?
So it would be kind of off the page a little bit further up here. This is where we are right here. So this street comes in through here, and then you come off of Crawford Road right here. And so,
Where all the drawings for the lots are?
yes, ma'am. So north is facing to the, this side where baseline is right here.
So there's not an entrance?
So there's not an entrance right now. We have another development that has come in, not related to this one. And as part of that development, we have asked them, and y'all required that they tie this stub street into it. So there will be a second access point if that development is completed.
See, this just comes back, you don't have an entrance. Where's your entrance?
The entrance comes through the rest of the neighborhood.
It's off of Highway 169 in Phase 1. There's
Yeah.
Phase 1, 2, and 3 already, and this is 4A.
See,
So the lot of this purple,
yes, ma'am.
there's the purple, the lot that has no lots, the property that has no lots drawn from it is the only entrance to Crawford Road.
So it will tie into the part the purple that does have the lots on it, and that'll go into Crawford Road. This phase does not have its own entrance directly to Crawford Road.
So is it going to be landlocked?
No, ma'am, it ties into the existing street network of the neighborhood.
But if it is not developed, is it landlocked?
Well, I mean, it still ties into the streets, so, but no, ma'am, it has frontage on Crawford Road, just a very little bit that can't be
Enough for a
accessed.
street?
No, ma'am. But it ties into the existing neighborhood that has it, and then we have made another connection through another development that will tie into it.
Okay.
This is one where, again, this was approved in 20 plus, or almost 15, 20 years ago, with a large multifamily development back here in this back section we're talking about now, and so we've actually reduced the number of units total to this development, but I don't know that it would have gotten approved today with only one entrance off of Crawford Road the way it's shown now.
Well, as I'm looking at it, the interior lots are half as big as those on the outside. Is that correct?
They're probably close to half, yes, ma'am, maybe
And the
60.
ones on the outside are much smaller than the ones all around.
Yes, ma'am. And there again, like I said, this was originally approved with apartments back here, and so through the changes, the lots are smaller, but they are still less. I think there's about 100 less than were originally approved in the overall master plan.
I just want to be aware of what's already out there, not
Yes,
that I think every lot ought to have a 1 acre.
I understand.
don't know what we're talking about, but it ought to be in keeping.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 13.
Item 13 is also a final plat that's on your agenda for, that was tabled last month. This is a request with Blake Rice, Barrett Simpson, representing Cannon Timber and Land LLC on Cannon Gate Drive. The applicant is requesting final plat approval for a 25 lots of a previously 85 lots preliminary plat. There's 22 single-family homes, 3 open space or green space detention lots. So you see it's here, this purple area is zoned as part of a planned unit development. You've got the development phase that they are proposing to approve here at the frontage, and then there's a large open space property down here along the bottom, and then you have the future development area that would be extended with the rest of the phase. The lots range in size from 13,000 to 19,000 square feet, exceeding the minimum size shown in the planned unit development. The lots are wider than previously proposed in the planned unit development as well. I believe there is a requirement in the next part of the phase to have an additional stub street going up to the adjacent property. We do recommend final plat approval subject to this. The developer information be shown correctly, whether it's Cannon Timber or S&B. I believe it's currently S&B now. Add the record courses and distances for comparison. Revise the subtitle to show the proper range. Add the 20-foot sanitary sewer easements along the side lot lines of 80 and 81, 82 and 83. Add the minimum building setbacks on the plat as a note. Require sidewalks on at least one side of the street, and all utilities must be underground. And again, this is one that they've been working on, the utilities, so I'll defer to Mr. Parker and Mr. Hillier on those as well, and Mr. Rice is here representing the application.
Engineering.
The engineering department has been inspecting the construction and testing the infrastructure of the subdivision, and a certification of completion will be completed and signed by the engineering and public works directors as soon as all the items below have been met, and a positive recommendation will be given. The roads are in, the infrastructure is in. Do not believe the signs have been installed. We have received bonds, and we are waiting on as-built. So right now, we're looking for as-built and bonds, and then I'll defer to Mr. Hillier for sewer testing, and water testing will need to be completed as well.
One, we do the signs, there's no signs yet.
Okay.
We don't have any as-bills. And the curbs need to be stamped, Blake. If you would remind, every time they don't stamp the curbs, and then they have to come back and cut them in with a saw, and it looks terrible. So those 3 items.
But besides that, we do recommend approval tonight because the majority of the work has been completed and tested.
Okay, this item is not required to have a public hearing because it's final plat. Commissioners, I need a motion.
Motion to approve. Second. Staff recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain because it's not listed
Yeah.
properly.
I understand. Motion carries. Item 13.
Yes, sir. Item 13 is just
I
on your
mean-
agenda. It was, I don't know if we needed to keep it on there or not, but it was previously tabled. There's no update on it, so I don't recommend you doing anything with it. It's not tabled to a time specific, so.
Item 14.
That's what we just talked about.
Okay. That was item 14, I apologize.
That's what he was just talking about.
Yeah. Item 13 was Candy Gate.
Okay. All right. Is there any other items to discuss? I make let me have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Motion carries.